Hey guys, do you want to help somebody's career take off? You want to watch someone rise from a rookie artist who doesn't know anything to a successful millionaire? If yes, then I need you to immediately check out the Hunters Guild Red Hood. If no, then don't read this new manga that has the potential to be the next big thing. Pay no attention to its already lush world building. Give no chase to the addicting mystery of what this upsurging cast of characters has in store for us. Close your eyes and turn off your brain to the ingenious strategic battle sequences wherein awesomely clever and inventive tools, weapons, and wielders come into play. If you read this manga, then you might be witnessing the rise of the next GOAT firsthand. The Hunters Guild Red Hood is a brand new series in Weekly Shonen Jump, which as of writing this video has only 10 chapters, and in the span of less than a volume and a half's worth of story, it's proven itself to be one of the most interesting and refreshing manga in the magazine in at least the last 5 to 10 years. And in my humble opinion, it deserves nothing less than to be a staple of Jump, if not a definitive example of what a good-ass battle adventure fantasy manga looks like. But what does this manga look like, anyway? From the very outset, it's shown and told to us that this world is one from straight out of fairy tales. We're talking witches, dragons, werewolves, and possibly even gods. And these name drops aren't quite like the beginning of other adventure stories like Hunter x Hunter or One Piece or Toriko or Build King, where all the possibilities are just told to you in a narration and a color spread. The first line of dialogue is of a woman asking, to which the boy says, of course not, since they only exist in fairy tales. That's when the lady reveals that dragons have indeed existed. It's just that 500 years ago, they went extinct. At the hands of human beings. Cut straight to a poor little village, where it's shown that the people have been struggling at the paws of werewolves who have been slowly picking off the denizens one by one. The little boy, Velo, tries to tell everyone that as soon as he grows up and becomes strong enough, he'll protect the village from the werewolves. The villagers tell him the discouraging truth, that by the time he grows up, it'll probably be too late. Then in comes the mayor, who informs everyone that he sent a request to the Hunters Guild, the expensive yet efficient guild that specializes in killing monsters. Soon after, a little girl by the name of Grim arrives. The mayor sold his house and all of his sheep just for an elementary schooler to show up and do the job? Well, no, it turns out that Grim is actually an adult, and a badass one at that. She has equipped with her a variety of tools and weapons designed by the guild to take down werewolves, and she is not playing around. The latter half of chapter 1, straight through chapter 4, is pretty much nothing but Velo and Grim engaging in a battle of wits against the werewolves, using their weapons, brains, and opportunities to wipe them all out. The main characters also have this interesting back and forth, with their ideals clashing as they work in tandem. There are also references to fairy tales and other storybook related things that pop up here and there. Chapter 5 is arguably where the story truly begins. Two new characters storm onto the scene, causing the incident for Velo to leave his hamlet in a dark, swift, and shocking turn of events. I don't want to spoil anybody, but actually, you know what, screw it. I'll spoil everything, since y'all know how to act anyways. A witch by the name of Cinderella and a gigantic werewolf by the name of Lycaon come in and burn down Velo's hamlet. And that's when Velo decides that he's got to join the Hunters Guild. And from there, we venture out into the world of hunters. Velo receives some of the most strenuous training in his life, which he has little choice but to endure lest he be sent home. That's the current arc we're at, and with every chapter, little drops fall onto the pages that belong to a vast ocean of lore, possibilities, and adventure. Plot-wise, it is the most promising manga I've ever witnessed the initial release of. The author and illustrator Yuki Kawaguchi has a lot in store for us. However, manga doesn't live on plot alone. You can't cosplay or draw fan art of the story. What you've got to have are some interesting characters. Luckily, the Hunters Guild Red Hood has a lot of them. Firstly, you've got Velo, the main protagonist. He's naive, but plucky and determined. At the end of the first and only full arc we've gotten so far, he decides that he wants to become a hunter, to prevent any more of the tragedy he endured to befall anyone else. All that is somewhat normal for a protagonist, but he and his ideals become the most interesting when he's able to bounce off of Grim, the very first huntress in the guild we get introduced to. Knowledgeable, cynical, and tough as the bullets made to pierce through werewolf skulls. She's clearly used to getting into deadly situations, but also isn't exactly perfect at getting out of them either. Some time ago, a witch put a hex on her, which caused her body to turn into that of a child. She can return to her original adult self, but only for set amounts of time. She doesn't get too hung up on emotions, and she doesn't seem too guilty about having failed to protect the village after it got burned down. She cares not about being a hero. Her endeavors as a huntress are purely carried out because it's her job. She clocks in, she hunts whatever she's been paid to hunt, and she clocks out. From chapters 6 and onward, we enter the training arc where we meet a diverse cast of possible hunters who all, presumably, have their own reasons for joining the guild. Each one of them also has their own means of hunting to bring to the table. The sibling duo Milty and Tilty are experts with guns and knives respectively. The esoteric Nulo Xiao seems to have these sorts of mystical elixirs that give him abilities like blowing gusts of wind. The acrobatic Portion, the juggler, has these ropes that she skillfully maneuvers to tie up her targets. And then of course you've got Best Boy Big Joe Bonkers. What makes him Best Boy Big Joe Bonkers, you may ask? The fact that he is Big Joe Bonkers makes him Best Boy Big Joe Bonkers. You might argue that he hasn't actually done much and isn't as interesting as the rest of the cast, but to that I say, shut your bitch ass up because it's Big Joe Bonkers. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce you to my lovely wife, Debonair Diamond. Isn't she beautiful? Every time I look at her, I find myself getting lost in her eye. Obvious jokes and invitations to hit up my DMs if you look like this aside, Debonair is probably one of the most interesting characters in this arc so far because of her ability. You see, some time ago, a witch's hex made her super hot, like in a literal sense. The curse made her body give off deadly levels of heat 24/7. After some kind of intense training, she was eventually able to control her body heat. Now, with the help of a special set of armor, she uses her curse as a means to fight. There are also what appear to be antagonists for future arcs, like the previously mentioned Ashen Witch Cinderella and the Titanic Werewolf Lycaon. We don't know too much about them now, but they do generate intrigue for what's to come in the story regarding the upcoming villains, who seem to have banded together calling themselves the Red List. The coolest thing about this cast of characters is that we know it's not even done growing. Since we're still in the exam phase, some might end up flunking out and not becoming hunters, while others will probably continue on. Inevitably, we'll see more members of the Hunters Guild whenever Velo arrives at the headquarters. Up till this point, I've just been kind of letting the art of Red Hood speak for itself. After all, these pictures have already told you thousands of words, have they not? My Hero Academia fans might notice a similarity between Kawaguchi's art style and Kohei Horikoshi's. I can personally see it most easily in the way Kawaguchi draws eyes and hair. The similarity is most likely because, before getting his own serialization, Kawaguchi was an assistant for Horikoshi. One thing I really like about Kawaguchi's art is this more rugged line art that especially amplifies the atmosphere of the wilderness, which as of right now has been the backdrop of nearly every scene in the series. It tugs on that feeling of mystery and thrill that comes with wanting to venture out into the woods, and when it needs to, it brings out the fear of the creatures that thrive and lurch at you, thirsty for blood. The use of motion is exceptional as well, and I mean this in regards to character motion as well as the motion of the art itself that leads your eyes from panel to panel. And even when you get to the end of a chapter filled with just about everything you want, you still end up wanting to beg for more. The one thing that differs the most from Horikoshi's art style and Kawaguchi's is the use of color. So far we've only gotten 2 chapters with colored pages, but he's already demonstrated that in color, Red Hood has a totally different feel from MHA, with these colors clearly picked for the sake of being unapologetically vibrant, to forgo realism for a minute and indulge in the adventurous hues of a storybook or a stained glass window, recounting the chronicles of a legend. And we even see him take a page out of a Rocky's book with the purposeful inconsistency of colors. For example, here we see Grim with purple hair, here we see it blonde, and then here we see it greenish. Araki doesn't seem to color things differently from panel to panel, so even this is a pinch of something that spices up Kawaguchi's unique flavor. Furthermore, upon reading even the first couple pages of Red Hood, it's pretty clear that Kawaguchi has a type. And that type is very tall, very womanly women. So, if you're a weirdo, this alone is reason enough to begin reading. But anyway, it seems an awful lot like this archetype of women will be a staple of the series going forward. But even then, it's not like every woman in the series has been built the exact same either. In fact, there is actually a ton of diversity in all the character designs, and I can only expect for characters to get increasingly distinct the further on we go. So, My Hero Academia has quirks. One Piece has devil fruits and hockey. Jujutsu Kaisen has sorcery. Chainsaw Man has deals with devils. What does Red Hood have? Nothing. And everything. As of now, the Hunters Guild Red Hood has no single centralized power system, which is a rather unconventional move in the current action-adventure battle manga scene. Instead, it seems every individual character will have their own ways of fighting. Actually, the word fighting isn't the right word to describe the combative encounters the characters are set to engage in. The more accurate word would be hunting. You see, a fight is more of a mutual sort of ordeal, where characters approach each other and use every available resource to beat their opponent into submission, while avoiding being beaten into submission. The action scenes in the Hunters Guild are, as the English title suggests, hunts, in which one party actively pursues the other, using every resource available to capture the prey, who are using every single resource available to avoid being captured. The hunter must gather clues, give chase, and subdue the prey, while the prey must scatter clues, evade, and defend. It is exhilarating, and it's the very thing I'd craved and expected during my first experience of Hunter x Hunter, and to have Red Hood in its absence is tremendously satisfying. Like I said earlier, even without a singular power system at this point, every character gets to bring something unique to the table. As a matter of fact, it's probably for the best that we don't get a power system. In the exams, several characters do their hunting with a special skill that they had been honing from the various places they came from. Furthermore, we also see characters take advantage of their situations, putting their minds to work in every facet of the environment to gain the upper hand. On top of that, it seems the Hunters Guild has a wide array of tools and weapons made specially for each and every conceivable step in the process of capturing and eliminating their prey. They are called the Hunters 616 tools, and prayerfully, we'll be able to see every single one in action during the run of the story. Regardless of whether we do, we've already seen that these uses of tools, weapons, and opportunities, instead of a vague source everybody draws on to get their superpowers, puts it a step above the way many other action sequences in the magazine are crafted, at least in my opinion. There are several quotes from Grimm that I think really tie together and drive home basically everything about this series and the message that it wants to tell. Here's the one that sticks out to me the most. Do you think horses and cows hold still and let wolves eat them? That they just flop over and expose their bellies to be ravaged? Humans don't have hooves to run fast, or thick hides to block teeth, or sharp horns to stab with. Our weapon is our minds. We have to use that soft, squishy horn to break down our foes. Grimm also makes it clear that this story won't have the same sorts of morals as other manga. The Hunters Guild isn't trying to be heroes. A werewolf's craving for human flesh isn't born in evil or good, and that the capturing of prey isn't carried out by the power of friendship. These are direct quotes, and it feels more like she's talking to the readers, trying to tell us that her author has some very different things in store for us. This tells me that the story is going to be about survival, playing with the cards that you've been dealt, and doing whatever you can to keep moving forward. If you turn back and give up, you have nothing. This is further reinforced by the way the Hunters Guild's training facility operates. It's this huge flying building that you pull up to, and it transports you to the HQ over the course of 3 months, and you're put through this non-stop regimen of intense physical and mental training. You can give up at any time, but if you do, getting back home is up to you. After the first arc, Velo has no home, so he either has to toughen up or get left behind with nowhere to go. It's emphasized once again with Debonaire's existence and the fact that she had a horrible hex put upon her, forcing her to either adapt or presumably die whilst killing every living thing in the vicinity. I think that it is safe enough to believe that we'll be seeing many more examples of this going forward. I think that one of the major themes of this series is taking what you have, whether that be a lot or a little, and using it to pursue your best life. Now I think it's a good time to discuss the real reason I made this video. Recently, I was admitted to the hospital and the doctor told me I had been diagnosed with will die without the Hunter's Guild Red Hood syndrome. Basically, this means that if this manga gets cancelled, my life will be cancelled as well. At this early stages of the manga's life we're at, its survival is uncertain. And in my case, that has a bit more of a literal meaning. There is no medicinal cure for will die without the Hunter's Guild Red Hood syndrome. All I can do is tell you to please, please, please read this manga and support it in every way you can. The final thing to keep in mind is that, unfortunately, if you're not in Japan, you probably won't have too much influence over the series' success. The most you can do is read the manga, post about it using Japanese hashtags, and maybe try buying the Japanese volumes as they release. But while I'm sure Shueisha primarily takes the Japanese reception into consideration, I highly doubt they'd completely ignore international support as well. Bottom line, please read the Hunter's Guild Red Hood. My life depends on it. Now subscribe and join the Discords. There's the main one where it's just about this channel and life, and there's the other one that's about all things manga. Have a good day.